Bam. Do it.
This is Geoffrey D. Calhoun, and you're watching the Break It Down Show.
Geoffrey D. Calhoun is my friend. Do you guys need any more of a bona fides than that? I don't think so. It's always good to have you on the show, man. I'm super stoked to talk about screenwriting with you. I love. Look, we both have come a long way since we first got to know each other, and you were telling me off mic that there's a very good chance that you will have your one of your projects in a very prominent place very soon. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but I'm just super stoked for you, man.
Oh, thanks. It's been a minute, Pete.
I
It's
know.
good to see you. Yeah, no, we're anxiously waiting to see if we have a big premiere at a top tier international festival. So we're gonna wait. We're gonna find out. I'm not dropping any hints yet, because if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But if it does, oh man, it'd be a huge feather in the cap.
Yeah, yeah. Even if it's the Ensenada Film Festival, in Baja, even still, like it'd be like, fuck yeah,
Yeah,
I'll take it. It's
yeah,
international and everything else,
absolutely.
but we're talking significantly
We're
bigger.
talking
Yeah,
huge, yeah, like
yeah,
top three. So
um, yeah, man. So I guess let me just start off by saying here, look, and this is no shit to everybody. I don't get paid to say this. I do this because Jeff's my friend. I travel with this book all the time, and I'm always working
it's
on
awesome.
my little screenplay ideas. I have 5 screenplays I'm writing simultaneously because I learned that from
Wow.
Hilliard. And so I try to put time in on each one of them, and they're nowhere near complete, but it's the exercise of the exercise that I think for me is the best thing. And then once I get them done, I'll have to have 5 more ideas and 5 more ideas. But I love this book, and it's so handy. I don't know if you can tell, but it's pretty beat up, road weary from use. So
It's,
everybody should get this. Let me put the link up in here. Let me do that too. Let me do my job and sell some books for you.
well, what I thought was cool is when you and I first met, I was kind of somewhat coming up with my process of structure, and so
Yeah.
I remember sitting with you in that um, little trailer thing, and we were kind of hashing out, and that was me kind of working on those thoughts, and it
Right.
just kind of blew up from there.
Yeah, but you make it concise. You talk about things like someone will say, "Well, what's your log line?" And you're like, "I haven't got the first clue." It's like any of those things when you develop a hook. Like they'll say, "Well, Pete, what's your show about?" And I'm like, "I illustrate life," and then they instantly want to say, I don't like that." Like it's not for you to like. Like I thought long and hard about this, and
Yeah,
so the log line is the same thing. Like you need to just have it wired tight. And here are the elements, 1, 2, 3, and you
yeah.
help people put that together. And that's like the jumping off point. Then the real work starts.
I mean, you have an incredible show, though, Peter. You're on over 1,000 episodes, and I would,
1,500.
my God, I would challenge anyone to find a podcast that has that many episodes. I mean, it's incredible. You're prolific. You're dedicated. You're making it happen. So I just think that in of itself, I mean, it's incredible.
Keep going.
Oh, okay. You're handsome, talented.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yeah.
no, I
I
just
mean,
think I just think it really is. It is something. I mean, I remember when I did the intro for your 1,000 episodes, and I was like, God, 1,000 episodes. I'm at 165,
yeah.
and I can't imagine where I'll be and what I'll be doing at 1,000 or 1,500. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I'm actually going to back off in 2023 and do less of them. I'll still do them regularly and everything, but I'm just going to be more picky, and I'm going to take that time and I'm going to put it into things like screenplays and finishing up my book and getting some of these other things off of my desk. I've proven to myself, at least, that I can make a podcast. And if someone wants to hire me to do these things, okay, great. But I'm going to stop doing
As
as
they
many.
should. They should absolutely hire this guy.
Well,
Come
yeah, I can apply for jobs. It's harder to get hired to podcast than it is to get a job in acting. I could probably go out right now within a couple of weeks, have some kind of acting revenue come in.
on. That's
But with
amazing.
podcasting, I can apply for a job. This is the crazy thing with all these robots in between you and the person who wants you. There's so many robots in the way. I can't even get a call back on podcasting jobs.
I think most of these podcasts, they just don't even have the funding. They want young
Yeah.
interns to work for free. I think that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about screenwriting, man. Let's talk about what there's so much information now about your guys' craft, and then also on the backside about what that craft looks like as a finished product. I've been listening to this, binge watching this guy on YouTube, and he just breaks down and he goes into all these movies, and he just talks about the background of the movie, like then John Wayne punched this guy and actually broke his nose and he was real sorry, kind of thing.
Okay.
And it gives you all these facts, but you hear about like these funny things, like in the Gilligan's Island, I think it's like in the open, in the black and white version of it, they were filming that when JFK was shot.
Oh,
And
wow.
so the flag is at half mast. When you see like an American flag in the background, that's
Yeah.
why, right? And you have these little tidbits that are out there. So much coverage on your craft now. Does that enter your thought process at all? Like, there's really going to be a lot of people paying a lot of attention to this thing.
I think entering screenwriting is, as far as cost goes, it's a low bar. You can buy a book, you can take a course, or you can get some screenwriting software, and then off you go, and you can start practice screenwriting. So I think it's a very approachable thing, but it is also there's very much a Dunning-Kruger effect there, where it starts out where you're screenwriting, you go, oh yeah, I got this, because you don't realize how much is really involved in this craft. And so then you think you have it all laid out. And then the longer you start doing it, the more confident or the less confident you get as it drops, because you start realizing, oh my God, there's this entire ocean that I have to learn about this craft. But eventually start to get wise. So it is funny when you meet, beginning screenwriters out there think, oh, this isn't this hard. I don't really have to do things like formatting, right? And you start going, okay, hold on, PTB, we got to talk about this. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think the bar is really low. It's easy to get in, it's accessible, and it's storytelling at its most visual, which is what we are. I mean, we watch movies, right? This is what we do. It's like movies are like the operas of the past, right? So I think that's why people want to get in there, and they want to tell their story, and the first thing they think of, oh, this would be a cool movie.
Yeah, it's so watching this guy's stuff, he's talking about Some Like It Hot, which is one of the most successful movies of all time. And the screenwriters, had an idea from something else, right? A lot of movies come this way. It's like, what if we did this? Or what if we adapted this play or whatever it is? And so there was the concept, and they're like, but how do we keep these two dudes in dresses through the whole movie? And then they just kind of brainstorm, and they're like, oh, we'll do the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, which turned this thing into like a period piece. And it's like all these things. But then now they had the mechanism to keep these guys in their female costumes the entire movie. Otherwise, like, it's like when Bruce Lee does Enter the Dragon. He's like, how can I get guns out of this story? Oh, I know. And then they concoct this whole thing about where the island is located and how, it can get them. So you have these vehicles, these tools, these inspirations. Are you ever not thinking about screenwriting and tools and tricks and like, oh, I can use that?
One, I love a challenge. So I love when I get brought onto a project and they're like, oh, it's very limited, we only have so much we can do, or we've already shot some of this, we can only do so much with this. I love the fact that I have a certain sandbox I can play in. So putting challenges like that on yourself is a great way to make yourself better. How do I write this thriller as a single location? Things like that. So it really makes you a better screenwriter. And I steal. I mean, that's what we do. Screenwriters are the best thieves in the world, because you see something you love, and you go, oh my God, that's amazing. You take that, you throw it in your toolbox. But when you use it in an original way. You don't want to steal directly from somebody. You don't want to write in the same voice that they write or steal the exact same way they do it. But you want to use it as influence. You want to use it as motivation to do something cool and original.
When you're writing movies or creating music, right? You have can I make a pop song, or do I make something that's really artistic? You have this battle, right? Do I do something that's, I guess you would say, high concept, low concept, right? If I've read my book.
I love that. Yeah, exactly.
There it is. I learned that from you. So you like, and your ego's like, I'm going to write some high concept. But if you can just slam dunk something that, like, if you can just get 90 minutes, 90 pages of scripting done, you're already like ahead of everybody in the entire planet. I mean, except for like, I don't know, 2,000 people, right? Like out of all 8 billion of us, you'd be at the very top by just finishing one, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on high concept, low concept?
I think right now low concept is going to really be taking off. You're starting to see it now. We've been seeing high concept films for at least 20 years, going all the way back to like Jurassic Park, the big summer blockbusters, all high concept films that appeal to everybody, and it's all a lot of spectacle. It's a lot of show, and I think that's why you've seen these budgets get higher and higher and higher over the decades, because they have to throw more spectacle at you to grab you. I think audiences are getting sick of it, and
I'm sick of it.
we're starting to see the effect of it. If you look at Avatar, the sequel, it's unfortunately not doing as well as it could be, and I think that's because people are getting tired of just being awed, and they want to watch a story where they're feeling connected to the central character. And so that's where you get the low concept from, where you're watching something and it is character based. And so you're starting to see what would be bigger stars doing these character driven stories like Joker and things like that. Even the Harley Quinn movie started to pull that in a little bit. So you're seeing, I think you're going to see a lot more low concept going forward, because audiences are starting to get educated, and they want something different.
One of the things that seems to come around, and I think we're due, if not, it might have already happened too. Maybe I'm not cool enough to know, but you have, like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, you have Dazed and Confused, American Pie, these
Yeah.
movies that come out and they launch careers, but they're also like, there's just always time for that kind of a period piece, that coming of age high school movie.
And
Is
comedy.
there yeah, comedy,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, is there time for that still, or I mean, because everything you mentioned was a comic book movie or a comic book
It's
series.
cyclical. So being just coming out of the pandemic and having a recession, and the fact that the planet's on fire, all of these things kind of, and there's a potential world war about to happen, all of these stresses that people are feeling, you start to see people looking for an escape, positivity,
Mm,
comedy. So you are going to see a reemergence of the rom-com. The rom-com is making a big comeback. It already started on Netflix. Netflix has some rom-coms coming out. You're going to start seeing them theatrically released. There's one out. The name escapes me, but one just came out recently that did well, surprisingly well. So I think you're going to start seeing that coming of age. Absolutely, those are always going to be there. They tend to do them as comedies, because coming of ages can be kind of hard to watch. It's
yeah.
about watching people screw up and eventually grow out of it. So you want it to be a little bit funny, like American Pie and such. But yeah, I think you are going to see a lot more rom-com.
A while back, you said you thought we'd see more creature features. Have we?
Um, the creature features, for some reason, came out as kaiju films. So you were seeing like King Kong, you were seeing Godzilla. So instead of
Mhm.
being the smaller creature features that we were used to, they blew it up in scale. And they did it
Mm.
again. There's a movie that just came out on Netflix called Troll, which is a Norwegian movie about a film about a troll, and they do it like a kaiju. He's like a 50-foot troll, and they essentially pattern it almost after Godzilla, and I thought it was fantastic. So they just went big with it.
Um, the thought about Hollywood doesn't have any original ideas, and that's probably because all of the marketing money and all of the things. And people who don't know, if you drive around LA, you'll know what movies are coming out that have massive budgets, because the buildings are plastered.
Billboards, yeah,
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 and it's not even just billboards, the entire building. It's like,
wow,
oh, Denzel has an entire new movie. And I'm talking like the entire like side of the building
that's
has
something.
become a billboard, right? And it's something out of a movie. Like with to see just the size and scale of these things. But then there's so many other movies, so many great movies, like in indie movies that come out that are just great. And one of the things I like about indie movies is that there's a lot of forgiveness. I have no tolerance. We were talking about Wednesday, and how
Yeah,
once she started with those piranhas, I was like, checked out, done. Like that's
right.
stupid. Piranhas are not going to survive in a pool. They're not going to go directly after the guy. And I'm like, this is stupid. I wouldn't make that leap with them, right? It's just I have no tolerance for that kind of thing. So indie movies, and an indie movie, look, if I don't know what it costs to make Avatar, but I'm guessing it's close to $1 billion. You
It's
know,
gotta be, yeah.
it's got to be right. You can make a movie for $1 million. Like you get good people who are indie people, they're stoked to get $1 million.
You could make a movie for $30,000. I mean, the Blair Witch was a $10,000 movie. So you can do it. You can go super low budget. $1 million nowadays is absolutely considered an indie film. I think it's up to like 3 million or something like that are still considered indie. But you can go super bare budget and make something. And if you're making it, you know, that you're passionate about it and you make something quality, it'll do better than you would expect it would do.
Do those movies sell well in the international market? Can you take those things to the movie market in general and sell them?
Absolutely. It all comes down to your distributor and the relationships that they have, and they can absolutely do that. But a lot of those, what we used to call like straight to DVD, which they don't really do anymore now, it's video on demand, VOD. A lot of those do well internationally.
How does that movie process work? Like when so you write this screenplay, right?
Yeah.
And because you're indie, you're going to probably produce a lot of it yourself, you and your whoever else you gather. Let's say you've got 3 or 4 people producing, but who does who takes that thing to market and sells it at the movie
Yes,
movie
you've got producers out there that are taking it out there. They're going to AFM or wherever they're finding distribution from, or they already have a preset relationship with the distribution company and they're getting it out there. What gets tricky is if you don't have a relationship yet with the distributor, then you have to find one that isn't predatory. Because we just had a whole thing a few years back where a bunch of indie distributors out there were just robbing indie production companies and keeping all of the money and not paying out anything that they were supposed to be paying. So you have to be really careful with who you're going with.
So how do you find a producer that has those relationships, right? Like I'm under the presumption here that the people watching this, they don't have that in their back pocket. So how do you meet people and how do you get to know the people that are like, oh yeah, I can take this to market. I want this percentage of the movie. And heck, how do you not get robbed by that dude?
All right. So, I mean, there's a few things you can do. You build out your network. So if you already have a network, you start looking around, seeing who you can reach. If you don't have one, we'll just say you don't have a network. You find a film that you really like or a film that is similar to what you're writing or have already made. You would have done this before you already made. If you're looking for a distributor after you already made the film, I'd be like, so and you find out, look for the producers. You go on IMDb Pro, find the IMDb Pro credit. Okay, this is where it gets a little stalkery. I mean, can you find them on LinkedIn? Can you start engaging with them on LinkedIn without just jumping into their DMs? Can you find posts that they've made and start commenting and slowly build that relationship, and then start reaching out and being like, hey, I have this project I'm interested in. Would you be interested in it? Or you could always try querying as well. My thing with querying is it can be a little bit more like a slot machine. You pull the handle and hope for the best. I don't really believe in querying, but I know some people swear by it. I've done over 1,000 queries and I get very little success. So I think it really just depends on your approach. I know some people do a scattershot approach and it works for them. Other people, they really kind of fine tune like a scalpel and figure out where they want to go, who they want to approach.
When you say query, tell us what that means.
A query essentially is an introductory letter you're sending out to a professional stating like this is the project and if they would be interested in it. If I was trying to query a manager, for instance, seeing if they want to accept me or look at my work or possibly rep me, I would send out a quick query. Usually it's like a log line. It can be a little brief intro of you, but usually just say log line, say, does this interest you? Would you like to read more? And then if they respond to you, that's great. That's not how I got my manager. I got my manager on LinkedIn. I had been building that relationship and then eventually just kind of made it happen. And by that time I had 2 or 3 managers I was looking at.
Nice. I had Jason Keller on the show, and he, and there's someone checking in from beautiful San Diego. He wrote Ford versus Ferrari, and it took a decade to get that movie made. And then when he got it there, and I'm just saying this just so everybody understands, this is Jason Keller's idea. He's the one that wrote it. But if you look at the writing credits, he's not first or second. To get that movie made, he had to partner up, and part of that deal was to have the
Yeah.
Butterworth brothers write that movie with him.
Yeah.
And so there's also that aspect of look, you take that win. I'm positive it was good for him because that movie was a smash. But there's some you talk about getting ripped off. There are some costs, some exchanges of value that have to happen if you are new at this. And so again, how do you avoid getting taken advantage of?
I mean, that's tough. WGA has specific rules when it comes to writing credits. There's writers out there that have optioned the script, wrote the script got made, and they got rewrote out of the script, so their name was no longer even in the credits because they had rewritten so much of it that the original writer couldn't be credited anymore. They still got paid. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that part itself is brutal. There's little things you can do as an indie writer where it's like a guaranteed writing credit. You can have that in your contract. Usually that's a lawyer thing. Make sure you have a good entertainment lawyer. Entertainment lawyer, not a divorce lawyer that is your cousin, because that's a different thing. It's like asking a dentist to do brain surgery. Nothing against divorce lawyers. I'm just saying It's two different disciplines. So when you're using a lawyer, you make sure you have an entertainment lawyer.
Let's talk about this too, because you need people on your team. So you have a friend who's a producer, he gets a cut or she gets a cut, depending who they are. And then you have your agent, they're going to get a cut. You have your entertainment lawyer, they get a cut. There's probably a lawyer who is part of, one of the things people also don't realize is most movies, like it's an individual business. And so there are lawyers involved there.
Oh yeah, man.
So all of a sudden you're like, we paid a lot of people. Well, so what is left? Like if you take your $30,000 film and it goes crazy and you make, I don't know, $50 million, something crazy like that, right? The return is massive. Is there still money left over though for the people that wrote it in the very beginning?
So it's not this lottery ticket that a lot of beginning writers think it is. Like a lot of beginning writers think it's the Willy Wonka golden ticket. I have this script. Someone's going to buy it for me. I'm going to pay off all my debts, buy a house. It does not work that way. I mean, your agent and manager right there, that's 25%, right?
Yeah.
So that's already gone. That's not including lawyer fees, and lawyer fees can vary depending on your lawyer. Your lawyer might have a $2,500 retainer. Your lawyer might have 2 or 3 times that. So that's money gone as well. And we're not even talking about taxes at that point. I mean, you still have to pay taxes on the money you make from optioning a script. So it goes quick. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. One of the things that I've learned along the way from all these different people I've had on the show is there's a lot of authors that have incredible, incredible books. And these are top-notch authors. And to get your book optioned is already pretty rare. Then to get that option made into something is nigh impossible. It's very, very challenging to get a book from being in someone's hand to on the screen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of competition for ideas.
Yeah. Everybody's looking for IP. So that's the good thing. If you write a book out there and it does really well, if it has a community around it, now we start looking at, okay, we can option it, because that's one thing that producers are looking for. They're looking for IP with a community. You can write a killer book with a great idea or concept, but if nobody's reading it, even if it enthralls the producer's like, well, where's the community I can bring into this? I mean, that's one of the reasons. House of the Dragons did well because it has a huge community around it from George R.R. Martin, right? So you bring the community in. That's why a lot of these YA books got adapted 5-6 years ago, because they already had a big community around them, so they can bring that community in to buff the numbers for a film. So what you're seeing right now, Pete, is not necessarily people writing novels trying to create IP. They're starting podcasts. So they're taking the ideas they had for writing a feature film or writing a television show, and instead of trying to query and pitch it, they're creating audio podcasts in the hopes of building a community, getting numbers around it, and then trying to option it that way to producers out there, because you can say, look, I have 1 million views. That's 1 million people who are listening to the show. I think it would be great. And that's how you get something like Archive 81, which ends up on Netflix, because it started out as a podcast that was a horror podcast that people loved, and it had a community around it. It had the listens. So they took that and took advantage of the fan base. And if you watch the show, you can see how it started out as a podcast, because it's very audible with the tension and the horror aspects of it.
I love it. Yeah, we've talked about creating something like that as a vehicle to try to get us, some different work and everything. And it is viable. I mean, it's really just a radio drama redone in modern times.
It is.
But,
it is. You're absolutely right.
But with the wider audience capable, right? So, like, if you're in New York City, maybe you can't. Get to the West Coast as easily, or you have to get syndicated. Here, you can syndicate yourself and go across to any channel. And if it catches on, you can do your own marketing. So we've talked about a lot of the negatives things, but there's a lot of powerful things where you can take your idea. And let's face it, the next idea that everybody said no to and ended up being a smash hit will not be the first, and it won't be the last. These things that happen, they're amazing. So you can will it. You can take it to market. I know it's a good idea. Take it to market, make your own thing, and see if you can gather an audience. And if you can, then keep going.
Absolutely. And creating a podcast is not that expensive. It's not like you're shooting a film. You got a good mic, right? You got a good setup. And then you just find crew or actors who can work with you, and you can develop that audio drama. And you can even make it contained. You can just do a couple of actors. I get the pleasure of having some podcast shows come on my show to discuss how they wrote it, and a lot of them were contained. One took place in an apartment building and had a cast of 4 people, but It was fascinating. So I mean, it is very doable.
It is very, very doable. And by the way, the other thing you can do if you want to make a movie is find someone that makes movies and just help them.
Yes.
It's like the thing.
It's true.
Like, you're just like, hey, you can be the one who's queried. I'm telling you right now, if you got $1,000, you can find someone that will help you spend that $1,000 on a project. And it doesn't have to be a 90-minute blockbuster. It can be a 10-minute short. There's a category for that in the Academy Awards.
Absolutely. And I often hear like, oh, I'm not in the film business. I'm not in the indie film community. I can't make any contacts. And people actually feel paralyzed by that. And I tell them, go find some kind of 48-hour film festival, some kind of weekend festival where you have to go out and make a film in 2 or 3 days and join a crew and work hard and be open to notes, and you will develop those relationships, because those are all burgeoning filmmakers as well. And so you will embed yourself into that community, make friends, make relationships, and have a lot of fun, and make a movie by the end of the weekend.
You look at how some of the biggest franchises in media history have come about, like South Park. That wasn't like, we're going to make this thing. They were just goofing around, sending their friends some Christmas videos, It's like it becomes this billion-dollar thing. Or The Simpsons, like that became something. And you
Tracy
think about
Ullman show.
Yeah, right. It was a short on the Tracy Ullman show. And so someone pitched them an idea like, yeah, we'll give you 5 minutes, right? And then it becomes this thing. It's the longest running, or if it's one of the longest running shows, bar none, on TV
crazy.
ever.
Yeah.
I actually had a conversation with the voice actor last week. His name's Jimmy. And I was like, would you rather be Yardley Smith or someone that just gets a lot of work from a lot of different projects, And he didn't give me an answer because he doesn't have to. He's in the industry. But it is his real question. Like, you can be someone like Yardley Smith and just be every week all around the world, there's stuff being made with your voice, and you're just never worried about money ever again.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's true. You never know what is going to take off. I I don't like queries, but I will tell you this. I ended up querying, and I wrote this zombie comedy called Hipster Z, and it was about, essentially the concept is, what if zombies um, become hipster zombies, and they crave people because people are non-GMO, gluten-free, and free range, right? And so these hipster zombies crave to eat people. It was a fun idea. It was a take on hipsterism and getting caught up in the bandwagon. And it really was about being an individual versus being part of the community. So that was it. But it was a comedy. So I queried a few people just to see what if I could get any heat behind it, and ended up querying a producer who sent it to his friend who was the head of Frederator, who does like Fairly Odd Parents and shows for Nickelodeon, who absolutely loved it, and then said, "Do you have a kids show?" And I did not have a kids show, so I said,
"But your answer was
yes, yes, I have a kids show." And then I called my dear friend Joanne Hess, and I said, "We need to write a kids show. We have 3 days." So we wrote a kids show. We pitched it to them. They loved it. They did end up passing on it, but then we turned it into a feature, and now it's being pitched to multiple animation studios out there. So, I mean, you never know what's going to happen.
Right. And you also don't know what movie is going to break, and then you've got one in the because one of the things like Hilliard is like, I write this movie and then I write this one and then I pick the old one up and I write it again. And so if something becomes a trend, or you have something like that movie, hey, guess what? I can go to market and like I've got something just like whatever it is. And Hollywood loves that. They're like, oh, this thing did well. Okay, great.
Oh yeah, I've had several. I worked with one producer where a movie was a big hit. He'd be like, "Okay, do you have something like this?" And I'd be like, "Yep." And then I would just whip it out and send it to them, and then they would pitch it. So yeah, it is definitely a thing.
Yeah. How hard is it to make it?
How hard is it to make it?
Mm-hmm. As a screenwriter,
I don't even. For me, making it is a personal definition. I don't feel anybody's made it until they think they've made it. Like, I'm always going forward with my nose to the grindstone. I'm never stopping to smell the roses. So for me, I never feel like I make it. But even though I have a film that's been shot, I've been optioned several times. I've made plenty of money at this. I've got a book that's currently #1 on screenwriting. Like, I have all of these, as you said, bona fides, but I still feel like, Geoffrey. I just feel like that guy who sits down and writes. So how hard how hard is it to make it? I think it's exceptionally hard. I think you have to you have to define what your version of making it is. I think that needs to happen, and not hold yourself up to anybody else's opinion. Is making it to you writing that script? Is making it to you making money with that script? Or is it making it to you being like a staff writer on a show, which is not something that I'm actively trying to do. For me, I love writing features. I want to see my features get made, and that's happening. So yeah, I feel like I have made it. I never really thought about it. I've been doing this 15 years. So I don't know if I'm an example or not, but I think it takes a long time to really not only get so good at the craft that people love your work, but to also build the reputation that you need in order to make it happen.
There it is. There's that book. The guy for every screenwriter, right? I know Jeff's embarrassed and I keep pushing it, but people can understand if there's someone in your life that says, I think I want to write a screenplay, instant gift right here. This thing is, what is it, $10, Geoff?
Yes, $12.89.
The best $12.89 you ever spent, because whoever look, Geoff is not paying me to say this, but you'll take this book. I buy for people all the time. I'm putting I have put my money where my mouth is. When someone's like, I want to write a screenplay, and I'm like, do this, and when you're ready, talk to my friend Geoff, and then you'll be able to live this dream. You can realize a dream by buying that dang book.
I always think
it's incredible.
I think it's fascinating because it sells in India. I mean, people buying it in India, and a school is buying it in India, which I think is fascinating. Yeah. So it sells all over the world, which I think is really, really cool.
It's fantastic. By the way, someone on LinkedIn is commenting, and I love it. I can't. The program doesn't let me see your name, and so I appreciate all the comments. And throw us your name, and we'll throw it up there. But yeah, this person has been, I don't know if it's a he or she. They've been commenting throughout the show.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
nice.
great.
I did catch one comment. They asked if predatory distributors is real, and it absolutely is real. You have to be
Yeah.
careful. A lot of them have been found out, and a lot of them have gone out of business and folded, but then started new businesses. So you have to be careful, man. I mean, it's just a thing. Maybe do your homework.
And what the law thinks is predatory and what is actually predatory, not always the same thing, but they sure
No,
as hell
it's
feel predatory. You know,
yeah,
I mean, there was, you talked about the WGA and you know, the Producers Guild. These places, they have rules, and you are new, and they are going to make sure that, you know, that you fit appropriately within their structure. And that's not a bad thing about them. Everybody has to go through this, but like Jason Keller, it's like, hey, you wrote a great script. We're going to put you ding, 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 third in the list.
yeah,
And look, they brought in the brothers, and they're incredible, and that helps sell the film, right? And
yeah.
so you have to do this. And as you continue to have great ideas, you get to bump your name up to the top. And you can be like my buddy Tony Toast, right? And Tony has been wonderfully successful, but most people don't know who Tony Toast is. Here's a guy he's managed by incredible people. He has made it.
Hmm.
But how many people know who Tony Toast is? You
Yeah,
know,
that's
you can
something.
be absolutely very, very successful at this and still like, you know, who's that? You know, like in
Right.
Hollywood,
Well,
they know
it's
who he is.
because you're the name behind the film, right? I mean, you're not out there on the film. Nobody gets to see your face,
Right.
and so that is the thing. I think I've only been recognized like twice, which I think is really funny. And usually it's just because they think I'm somebody's cousin's brother, because I'm like the bald bearded guy. But no, there's
Uh-huh.
there's been a couple. I was at a convention and somebody actually knew who I was, and I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of funny.
That is kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all get a little bit of that. What do you want to talk about, man? I've been beating you up here for a while, talking
This
about
is
the goods and
awesome.
the bads.
This is why I'm here, man. I'm just here to chat screenwriting. What is out there that you've been digging right now? You've been watching anything?
um, yeah, but I'm watching more from the purpose of trying to learn, watching and reading screenplays,
Okay.
and thinking about also playwright. So I've got an idea for a play that I want to do, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
this is not a screenplay. This is specifically a play,
A little
and
dramaturgy.
yeah, it's so I go on a lot of road trips, especially with Save the Brave. You know, every year we go across the
That's
country,
cool.
and I realized that if you just stood still at a truck stop, the whole world passes around you. Every
Yeah,
possible piece of
sure.
humanity is going to go whipping by, and so the only other static people are the people working the register, right? And so I think it would be cool to put the audience right there at pump six
Yeah, that's awesome.
and just have the world whipping by, you know. And I just think it's a neat idea. So I've been kind of playing with the concept. I'm not even sure what happens in this damn thing. And maybe like any slice of life movie, maybe nothing does happen, you
Well, I
know.
mean, that is a slice of life movie, but it sounds more like an anthology. Sounds like
Yeah,
every has its. You're doing like a little White Lotus thing here, so you could have every little character has their own story that you follow, and it all comes right back to the pump. So that could be interesting.
right, right. And I think every like oh, I don't know, every 5 minutes someone goes screaming across the screen or the stage because they got to take a leak, you know, because this is constantly going on,
That's
you know. But there's got to be a little mini love story, maybe a missed chance at love. All these little things. There's going
yeah.
to be some drama and some
You got to
pain,
have
you know.
somebody broke who can't afford gas. I mean, you got to throw that in there.
Absolutely.
Yep.
One of the things we actually saw was a family dispute. It was on Indian reservation at the gas station,
Oh wow.
and they were having a full on. The mom was very very much. She was very agitated and screaming, and the dad's like, "Hey, and he was just trying to sort through this thing that was unsortable."
Oh
And then
wow.
everybody's kind of just watching, and if it had been the other way around, there'd probably been a little bit more attention. But the guy was calm, and so you weren't worried about any kind of real violence. I mean, maybe she would do something to him, but he probably could, put it, because the last thing you want to do is get involved. And this whole thing was going, and then the reservation police showed up, and they started working on doing things to get it resolved. But just something like that, I mean, that really happened. I've been during COVID. My girlfriend and I took a road trip up north to our hometown, and the car behind us at the pump the automatic shutoff didn't shut off automatically
Oh,
because it
that's
was just
scary.
geysering fuel everywhere, right? And so she's like, "Oh my god!" And so I'm action man, so I got to go solve the problem. So I go run
Action
over into
man.
the rainstorm of gasoline. But all these things actually
Yeah.
happen all the time at gas stations.
I got one for you.
Yeah.
I knew this guy. He was a criminal. Let's start with that. So this guy is a criminal. He had a different car every week. So essentially, he would buy a car for like $500, drive it till it died, and then just buy a new car.
Wow.
Buy a car. So he had a new car every week. He would do this thing called boyfriending. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't know.
Boyfriending is when you're homeless. So
Mhm.
you find a girl and you become her boyfriend, so you're no longer homeless.
Wow.
You're not in love with her,
Yeah.
but you play the part, right? And he
Right.
would do that, and he would meet these women at a gas station.
Wow.
And I want to like, what kind of guy is able to pick up a girl at a gas station? That to me, like, minus everything else, the fact that his cars were probably stolen, that he eventually was taken away, minus all of that other stuff. How are
Yeah.
you picking up women at a gas station? To me, that was insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, he would boyfriend.
Boy, that's a neat, like the Pickup Artist was a movie. I think it was in
Yeah,
the 90s or whatever. Like this
yeah,
could be the boyfriender and
yeah.
just doing that. So
That's
crazy.
it's
That
crazy.
is crazy.
I got one for you. I
Yeah.
watched all the way up until. Thank you. I watched all the way up until this current season of The Crown for you, sir,
Oh, thank you.
because you wanted me to watch. So I binged it, but I did not watch the latest season. And so I have to ask you, what was it about The Crown that you wanted to talk about?
You know, it's the acting, right? The English actors are just so damned good. And there's just one scene in particular when Prince Charles looks back at his family and there's just all this different forms of disgust and aloof. All these negative emotions are just thrown right back at him, and it's all his perception of them. You don't know what they
Yeah.
really look like, but to
Mm-hmm.
him, they just look like these horrible people that he's stuck with. And
Yeah.
it was such a powerful scene. I don't feel like we pull that off. I think American acting is a little more. I don't want to say banal because that's negative, but it's just a little more straightforward. And the I don't know. There's just a little more stagecraft in the acting in the British people, maybe.
Well, I think with that particular scene, it's. I was actually talking about this the other day. I was talking with Matthew Colliel, who's the author of The Three Wells of Screenwriting, which is a fantastic book. So I was talking with him, and we were speaking about writing for moments of silence with your script. So when I teach students or I mentor other screenwriters, one thing I will do is I will sit down with them, and after a while I'll be like, is there a moment with this character where they're really reflecting and feeling what they're going through as far as the story goes? Because what you'll see with a lot of writers is they'll just put dialogue in there, and we're feeling with our words, and which is they're learning, they're developing, but eventually you want to write moments of silence so that the actor can play, so that the actor can sit there and really have that moment of the character's journey to really reflect what's going on, and it allows that actor to make certain choices. So I think that's one of those moments where that actor really got to be in that headspace and to emote that out, and that's probably why it was so powerful and stuck with you.
Yeah, and then the director, as he's directing this, I don't know, what is it, 7-person shot or whatever it is he like, and you're going to think about bananas, and you're going to think, and is it set, or do these guys just all know what form of contempt or whatever it is that they're going to deliver towards Prince Charles?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I wasn't on the process, but the
Yeah.
director is going to elicit the response that they want
Right.
from the performer. Whether sometimes it is something like if they're upset or scared, the director will say something like, "You have a sick tummy," and so then the actor will pretend that but they will look like they're upset. So I mean,
Mhm.
they can do little tricks like that, like, or they sense memory, or they just really dive into the character, and they really, it depends on whatever their discipline of acting is, but the director will get the response um, from the performer. That being said, having written a script and had the privilege of being on set while it was shooting, I've seen um, the director have a different take on a scene that I was shooting, or on a
Mm.
scene that I was writing. They had a different impression of it, but it was way cooler. And I was like, oh, that is so cool. So you can sit down and write a script, and you can write it in a very specific way and a feeling of how you want it, but then the director is going to have a view of it. And then
Yeah.
from there, the actors are going to have a view of it. So the actors may be reading the lines completely different. So you have all of these different interpretations of your material. And that's where the art starts to come in. So the
Right.
director and the performer work together as they figure it out. Um, and when I was on set, they would ask me questions, and I'd be like, "Well, I did my job." So it's up to you. But I would graciously, and offer whatever insight that they wanted. But I didn't want to be like, because I would say that it is the director's job. It's whatever the director's vision, whatever
It's an
he
interesting
wants.
dynamic too, right?
Yeah.
Because there's just so much in that scene. That's why that just that one moment, it's so powerful. Because yeah, is it the actor like, this is how I see Charles, and is it his dad just thinking, I want to go play polo, and he's just kind of
Yeah.
spaced out, not thinking about anything, but that comes
Yeah.
across. It's just a human moment, and then like you're saying, behind the scenes, I talk about the specs a lot: respect, perspective, introspection, all the specs. When you hand your script over to somebody else, you're exposing it to someone else's perspective.
Absolutely.
And boy, it really can open up something, like you said, in from terms of art, and it becomes, especially because it's the director's job to tell the story, you
Yep.
know. And then you have the actors like, well, this is how I understand my little spot in this story, and this is how I'm going to tell this. Like when, like, gosh, I don't know, an actor show. I was, again, this guy I've been binge watching. Someone hurt their leg before doing a movie, and I can't remember which one it is now, but they left the limp in the story because he
That's
actually had a
cool.
limp for 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
it became part of the character, right? So the actor brings something that you could never, like, I never thought
Well,
about. Yeah,
I mean,
what if this guy had fallen down the stairs, just a couple of stairs, and he, wrenched his ankle? He's got to walk funny. Dang, it changes that character.
well, Brad Pitt broke his arm on Seven, ended up getting a
Right,
cast, and so they wrote it into the script.
right,
So there was that. DiCaprio cut his hand during Django, right on set, sliced it wide open, finished the scene because he's baller. But
yeah.
and then they wrote that in to the rest of the film. Um, yeah, there is something to be said. It really was a privilege for me to be on set, watching performers perform lines I've written, watching the director direct, and the actors, and watching the director's interpretation. I mean, Harley Wallen was the director on Finding Nicole. He's awesome. Seeing him out there, really in his element, was great. And to really sit back and realize, when you write a screenplay, how much work the actors put into it. One actor had 8 pages of notes of what they wanted to go through with their character based on the script, and so we just went through together, like the the actor and I went through together, and it really made me realize, wow, you really do want to write a script that is worthy of an actor to perform in, because they're putting so much work into it. Like, it made me want to be even better, um, even though this script was optioned and filmed. So it really is something.
It is something.
Get a
One
Wear
of the things,
Pineapple shirt, guys.
yeah, you got to get. Have you guys seen the
What
Wear
does it look
Pineapple?
like?
Oh, let me show you what the Where
I
Pineapple.
want
So
to
this
see
is a
what it
funny
looks
story.
like.
My buddy Tom is a Emmy grade illustrator, right? And so there's the Where Pineapple.
Oh,
Right
I'm buying this.
there.
I'm buying this right now. I need this
Okay,
link.
good. All right,
I'm
I'm gonna
trying to.
send you the link.
I'm
I'm gonna
trying to
send you
click
the
on
link.
the link. Okay.
I'm gonna.
I'm buying this for my son.
Yeah, you should. It's an awesome story. So I was we were I like looking at the moon at night, right? And you know, when it gets a certain way, I'm like, oh, it's really werewolfy, you know? That's
Yeah.
kind of, and I thought to myself, what if it's not just werewolves? What if it's were anythings? And so I'm like, what if you could have a were pineapple? And so my buddy Tom, his name is Tom Perkins. He gets all the credit for the artwork. I hit him up on Facebook. We grew up together, right? And so I'll send you the link for this thing right now. Hang on.
Oh yeah, I want it.
And so I send Tom a message on Facebook, and I say, hey, I had this funny thought, where pineapple, ha ha ha. And then within minutes, the the image comes to me. It's like, and just
That's
toss it
so
out.
awesome.
Yeah,
I
I just
love
sent
it.
it to you in the private chat. So that's the Wear Pineapple shirt story. And you know, look, if people want to buy it, I think it's fun to help support the show and all that kind of stuff. But it's a fun shirt, and it's like
I'm sorry, I
so
just
great.
read this shirt. Where pineapples do it sweeter. You are
That's right.
hilarious.
They do it sweeter, right? Yeah, and then you think about like if you did do a movie about where people, right? Like, oh, I got crossed with a pineapple. And it's the craziest story, origin story. You know,
Oh my
it's
god.
a it's a franchise. It's like where whatever. You know, where wolf. Okay, yeah, that's nice. What if you're a were panda and you're like, you know, I'm indifferent about sex when I'm all weared out. I mostly just want to eat bamboo. You know,
I just bought it.
nice.
I'm
We
giving
saw
it,
the shirt.
I'm giving it to my 17-year-old for Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, he'll love it.
He'll
He'll
be
love
like, "What is this?" I'll be like, "You'll enjoy it. Just wear it.
You'll enjoy it.
Don't wear
You'll
it at
enjoy
school. That's-
It's not.
don't wear it at school."
It's barely a double entendre. It's all right. It's key to you know.
Oh, that is awesome.
Oh, it's so
I
funny.
love it.
Anyhow,
I love your shirts. Your shirts are the best. I still wear the Break It Down shirt I got from you from that was navy blue, I think
oh
years
man, that's
ago.
awesome.
And I think that was like one of your first releases, and I was like, buying it.
Done buying
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
Yeah, it's fun to make these shirts. It's another creative outlet. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about movies in the last couple minutes. Well, tell us about your
Go for
podcast. We don't run out of time and not hit that. Tell us about your podcast.
All right, yeah. So I'm host of the Successful Screenwriter podcast. It's available or anywhere where podcasts are downloaded. We just launched our community website. So our community is pretty amazing. So you can join our community for free. You get access to over 130 screenplays from Oscar-nominated films all the way to indie hits, summer blockbusters. Everything is in there. 130 for free. Several seminars and workshops that I've done and that my staff has done or friends of the show have done. Access for free as well. You can get on our forums. Here's the cool thing, Pete. We've partnered with InkTip Pro, who send us exclusive links for our community. So you could go on our podcast forum for free and get access to exclusive job requests, script requests from producers out there looking for stuff. So there's all of that. And then you could always sign up for the paid membership where you get access to screenwriting courses, live streaming, interviews, our monthly contest that we do a monthly screenwriting contest. All of that is part of the paid as well.
I love it. I love it, man. That's so great. I'm so happy for you. Everybody should check out the link. If you look in the comments on YouTube, you will see the link in there, but it's easy. The successfulscreenwriter.com. You put the /podcast, you get the pod, but you'll be able to net. You guys all know how to work the internet and everything else. So yeah, man, I love that you're doing that. You're also collecting characters. You and I have talked about this a little bit.
Oh man, the character database is awesome. Thanks for bringing that up, Pete.
Yeah, I think it's a neat idea, you know.
Well, I need to get you on it.
Okay, let's do it.
I mean, you're a spy. Excellent. Yeah, you're coming on. All right, you're coming on. So the character database, I've got CIA officers, FBI agents. I've got a hacker, I've got a con artist we just uploaded. I just interviewed a neuroscientist. I've got a biomed scientist coming up, a New York police detective. So we're developing this character database that's exclusive for the paid members on the website of professionals who do unique jobs that you can use as research for your next big script or character.
That's so great. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things where like there's actually people that have done that job, right? And so you can do
Yeah.
this indefinitely. So
Well,
like, you can have, yeah.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say because there's spies. There's 100 kinds of spies, and then there's multiple
Yeah.
levels of what they do. And so, what kind of a spy do you want to know? And then you have to talk to that person to find out. Oh, by the way, you need to talk to this person because this person also drives how I do my day-to-day operations or whatever that
That's
is.
awesome. Well, the thing with screenwriting is it is a ton of research. They say write what you know, but that doesn't mean just write from your life. It means whatever you're writing on, know the subject in and out.
Yeah.
And so one way that I've done it is I've always done it through research. I've always reached out to particular individuals and really interviewed them for whatever upcoming project, whether it been like a young adult, like 17-year-old, so I can understand the way that they speak, and include that in my script, or if it was a private detective when I was writing a thriller, I would do this research, right? So I thought, man, there is no database out there that I could just go on and watch an interview with somebody so I can absorb them. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to make it. And so we're making it, and people are loving it.
I love it. I love it. I think it's a great idea, and it's just that leads like it just exponentially grows out, right? Like whatever that topic is, whatever the person is, like I know a guy who was a Russian FBS agent, right? And so now you can have access to him.
Oh, yeah. Send them my way, man.
I will.
I'll be
I'll
happy
send
to
him
bring
your
them
way.
on the show. Yeah. I had
Yeah.
I had a polygraph artist come on the show who did
Yeah. There's
polygraph
so many different guys.
out of black sites for the CIA. And then he
Yeah.
ended up being targeted by a different country, tried to assassinate him.
Crazy.
It's
Crazy.
wild. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah. What do you want to wrap up with? You got like 3 or 4 minutes here. What do you want to do?
Well, I got a second edition of the Guide for Every Screenwriter that will be coming out probably, definitely in 2023. It's going to have a focus on television. So it will be, right now, the Guide for Every Screenwriter is features, and we'll be adding another 60 pages that will be for television.
Nice.
I wrote it. But
well, it's I can't say it enough. Everybody should really at all if you're interested in story. Even if like this thing is cross-platform, so even if you're interested in like how do I in my daily life, my business life, use story to my advantage. Ba-ding, right here.
Well, I've had comic book artists tell me they use it to write their scripts for the comic books, so graphic novels. I've had novelists tell me they used my structure for writing their novel. They just changed the page count. So, I mean, because structure. And what's unique about my book, which you already know, is that I use subplots and show how subplots intersect with the main plot, which is something that nobody else really does.
Yeah. Yeah. And you break everything down into, like, I'm really big on, if the theoretic idea is like really hard to grasp, they got strategic and operational, you give tactical things you can do. What is your movie about? And you break it into pieces. What happens? Here's 27 steps or 27 things that have to, and you just start populating it. It's not a formula, but it's a formula.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Did I ever tell you why I developed the book?
Tell me why.
Okay, I was hired to fly to Ghana and teach screenwriting for their filmmaking students. And so I only had like a 2-week time period. So I had to take my methodology of writing screenplays and boil it down simply so that I could teach these filmmaking students from Ghana how to teach screenwriting. So that's what I did. I built this essentially 2-week course. And
That's so
then,
cool.
yeah, and then it fell through. So I didn't end up flying to Ghana. So I just ended up touring different film festivals, teaching the course. And people would inevitably ask me, "Do you have a book to go with this?" And I didn't. And so I was like, "Oh, maybe I should write a book." So then I literally just took the course and turned it into the book.
Pow. There it is.
You're so kind.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, look, I sell a lot of books. I read a lot of books. They're all great, but your book, for what it does, it is just perfect. It is the best little book ever, and I just love to thumb through it and just if I get stuck on something, you know, because you don't have to write. In my mind, you don't have to write a screenplay in a linear fashion. You know, you can be like, let me improve this part of the play, or let me
Absolutely.
think about this part of it. You know, whatever it is, and I'm like. I just open it up. Sometimes I just go right here. Let me read about this for the next 10 minutes. And by the way, you can read this book in less than 90 minutes. Like
Yeah,
it can
it's
be
an
start
easy
to
read.
finish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's the goal. I mean, I wrote it as a reference guide because I wanted to write the book that doesn't leave your desk. And a bunch of writers have reached out to me and told me like this stays on my desk. I
Yeah.
literally accessed this book. I accessed it today. And that's the goal. I mean, it really feels good. I mean, I think that's why it's number one on Book Authority. Is because it is that book that's it's not like a college textbook. It's easy to
Yeah.
access. Yeah.
It is. It is. Well, listen, it's fun, and we shouldn't take so long between shows, and we will get more in depth
It
into The
has been a
Crown.
minute.
And yeah, and I appreciate you watching The Crown. You know, it's such an
Oh yeah.
interesting thing. And you know, the screenwriting. I don't want to get too far into this, but the screenwriting in that thing, and you think about the load, like
That's
it's
good.
because it's multi-seasonal. You can get a lot of real-time response and evolve how you present these characters. And there's a lot of animosity towards that show too. And so I was curious about what you thought about that and the quality of the writing and everything,
I
and
think the
you know,
writing is
just the whole thing.
fantastic. I love the fact that they age over time, so they end up bringing in different actors after a couple of seasons to take on the new roles, and then you see how that character has matured in between those gaps. I think that is really cool. You don't really see a lot of that. The only other time I've seen a show do that is For All Mankind. So I think it is really cool to just follow a character. I mean, not from birth, but essentially from the
Yeah.
beginning of a moment in their life, and then following it a lifelong arc. That is so cool.
And when you see the flashback or the picture on there, it's Claire Foy playing the young, you know, queen. And so
Yeah.
it's her, but the person playing her is not Claire, you know? And so
Yep.
you're like, this
Yeah.
is this thing. And acting is just so fantastic. They're so great at doing that thing that they do that they become that person for you. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
It's
Claire Foy
amazing.
used to play the queen. You know, they
Yeah.
really do a great job with that.
I agree.
All right. Anything for me before we wrap this thing up? Any questions?
Any question? How do you get 1,500 episodes and not like get exhausted?
I do get exhausted.
Okay. I feel better.
Yeah. I do get exhausted. I've cut a lot of extra stuff out of the show, so I do a lot less of the production. Um,
Oh, okay.
so a lot of the money that comes in goes into my Macedonian team and Damian and Dragon, and those guys create the podcast part. I do the live part, and so I'm handling. Look, I'm still doing a lot of work, but you know, I just I go in waves, and I'll overbook myself, and then I stop booking, and then I just run through that time period. And I love it. I love having these conversations, Geoff. It's just incredible. It's so enriching. I can pull back to so many conversations. And then if I'm on my game, I'm re-listening to these shows and re-enriching myself through my own show, which is ridiculous.
I think it's
There's so much knowledge.
well, it makes me feel better because I'm the same way too. Like I'm 165 into it, and I do the vast majority of it. And then I looked over to my 17-year-old, and I'm like, "You don't have a job." He's like, "No." I was like, "You want to edit my podcast?"
Yeah.
And he goes,
Right, totally.
"Well, how much?" You go, "This much." And he goes, "Yeah." So I hired my kid. My kid edits my podcast, but
Yeah. It's good.
it is
You're
a
supposed
time
to.
save, and I feel so much like I feel
Yeah.
more rejuvenated. I don't because when you listen to the same conversation 2, 3, 4 times, you're like, but
Yeah.
this is yeah, that makes me feel.
But I do go back and I listen to things because I want to see how I'm growing. I want to relearn these things and just keep those conversations in my head, because it's a lifetime of conversations.
That's
1,500 conversations.
That's amazing.
I mean, you think about how many years, that's almost a full work year of nonstop conversations and all those 1,500, you know.
I had somebody reach out to me and they said, I just binged 9 hours of your show. And I'm like, I didn't know I had 9 hours worth of conversations. So, you know, it is something. It's incredible. Yeah, no, I do like to go back, and because you forget, and then you listen, it's almost like you're listening to it for the first time, and you're like, wow, that was a great conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And this has been a great conversation. I listen, I appreciate you. Merry Christmas and
Merry Christmas.
All of those things. Thanks for buying a Wear Pineapple shirt, by the way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I know, it's so good.
Yeah.
And the thing about Tom is he's so great. He's like, yeah, you can use the image. If you make any money, give me some. And I'm like, of course, you know.
Dude, we don't have a set percentage yet, Tom, so you might want to clarify that, because you just sold a shirt, buddy.
That's right. Here comes $1, Tom. Yeah. You know who makes the money? The t-shirt company.
Yeah.
Things. I don't want to be the warehouse. I don't want to be the printer, all those things, you know. So I let someone else take that all on. But all right, well, listen, unless you have anything else, I'm going to wrap this thing up.
No, thank you so much for having me on. This has been a blast.
All right, stand by.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much for watching.